This has all been made possible by some really wonderful sponsors and partners. And the presenting sponsors for the exhibit have been Liga Vector Brands, Robert Tier, and the Rotary Club of Durham. And I just want to say a special thank you to them. We have partnered with North Carolina Central University, the DCVB, UNC Greensboro, and the North Carolina Collection at the Durham County Library. More on 2 of those to come, but I want to recognize all of their involvement. I also want to just thank our History Advisory Committee. Everything that we do, the opening exhibit, is vetted through these historians who donate their time, and I want to say a special thanks to them. I want to introduce 2 people and invite them to come up. Our curator, Mary Williford, and then one of the North Carolina Central students that we worked with. And they are going to say a few words about the exhibit and about the work that they've been doing. And then that will be followed by Lynn Richardson, who is going to introduce our fantastic musicians that are performing today. All right, so if Mary and Constance would come on up.
Thank you all so much for coming out here today. I'm Mary Williford. I'm the curator of the exhibit. And this exhibit was essentially my master's thesis. So I've been working on it for 9 months now. And I think it's been absolutely fantastic the whole way through. One of the reasons that I really wanted to partner with the Museum of Durham History for this is, back in, last August, I was going around setting out feelers for making this exhibit, how we can shape it, and I was passing out postcards, and almost every other place that I stopped at, almost every other person I spoke to said, "Oh my gosh, I know the History Hub. My grandmother was up there. My great-grandfather was in there once. I saw a picture of a house that I used to live in up there." And so that really confirmed for me that this is a place where, they're invested in telling the community stories. It's not just, famous men's teapots here. And so I hope that Durham Beginnings, when y'all go through and, look at it back there, you get that sense that we're telling these stories of, ordinary people who had a good impact in Durham over the years.
And I'm a student at North Carolina Central University, a graduate student. And Mary, she came to our class and she was telling us about the exhibit and how we could have a part in it. And so we all got together and we had different groups in the class. And we came together and did our own interpretation of the history. For example, we have a blog, if you all want to check it out. It's durhambeginnings.wordpress.com. And on the blog, we talk about the WPA interviews. And also, one of our classmates did a dramatic reading of the Abner Jordan interview with the WPA interview. And also, we have an artistic interpretation of Abner Jordan, since there was no picture of him out there. And also, we also analyzed the primary resources of the exhibit, and we told how this history could be used. We delved deeper into it, and we looked at every aspect of the primary resources, and we told the public, as you will see if you check out the blog, details about each of the primary resources. And just some of the examples that we used were the R.B. Fitzgerald advertisement, the corn of Ramsar and Mangum, and also the Durham smoking tobacco. And so it's quite a few blog posts, and we're still updating them. We have quite a few coming this week also, so I encourage you all to check it out. And also my class did music during that time, and that was another group, and they have music during that era if you want to check that out also.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Lynn Richardson. I'm a librarian for the North Carolina Collection at the Durham County Library. Just want to tell you very briefly what we do. Our primary mission is to preserve and make available the historical record of Durham County. So we have the research materials. We get everything from kindergartners to professors from Duke to volunteers from the Museum of Durham History and all kinds of people in between coming to do research, and the museum dovetails with us really nicely because they tell the stories of Durham history. So between the two organizations, you get a nice overall picture of Durham history. I want to tell you a little bit about what we're going to do here today. We've got Roland Terry and David Russell, who I'll introduce in a minute, who are going to be doing music interspersed throughout the day, right after I speak now, again at 3:40 and again at 4:10. At 3:30, we'll have Candace Bailey, who is going to talk about cultivated music, women's parlor music of the Civil War era. And then 4 to 4:10, we're going to have Chandler Vadavuk, who is doing a reading from a work called Dawn of Peace, and he will be reading about the Bennett Place surrender, which of course we're commemorating here today. So, I also want to tell you we have a table over here from the Durham County Library. If you want to know more about our programming, we do extensive programming. Our programming person, Joanne Abel, is over there. She can tell you what we've got coming up. We've got a brochure. So please see her if you're interested in Durham, North Carolina history, and all kinds of other programs related to history and culture. Okay, now to our musicians. David Russell, who's here, began touring in the late 70s, and except for breaks along the way for commitments to his family, he actively continues to tour all year. Between road dates, David does arrangement and studio session work, advertising jingles, film music scores, and on-call sideman jobs for touring groups. We also have Roland Terry of the Doc Branch Band, which has deep roots in northern Durham County. Roland's ancestors settled the northern Durham County area over 2 centuries ago, and the family has been playing music both for themselves and for community gatherings and dances as long as anybody can remember. In 2005, the Doc Branch Band was awarded the Community Traditions Award by the North Carolina Folklore Society. And these are 2 very accomplished, wonderful musicians. They're going to be playing music of the Civil War era, so I will turn it over to them.
Thank you, Lee. We have that, the first tone we're going to play is the UGG when you sit down in tight settings. Not that that would be any different if it wasn't tight. Bring it on up, bring it right. That's pretty good again. Gets too loud, it's you let us know, won't you? We'll know that. Kick over the T. Tis a soul of the rebel that leans on that sword, and while we are mounting praise low to the Lord, now each cavalier that loves honor and right, that can follow the feather of Stuart tonight, come tighten your girth and slacken your rein, come buckle your blanket and holster again, try the click of your trigger and balance your blade, for he must ride sure that goes riding the rain. Now gallop, swim more to ford, old Stonewall still watching, praise go to the Lord. Goodbye, dear old rebel, the river's not wide, and Maryland's lights in a window to guide. Come tighten There's a man in the White House with blood on his mouth. There's knaves in the north, there are braves in the south. We are 3,000 horses and not one afraid. We are 3,000 sabers and not a dull blade. Come tighten your girth and slacken your rein. Come buckle your blanket and holster again. Got a click of your trigger and balance your blade, for he must strike sure that you're riding the raid. Thank you. We're doing all kinds of music today, and we will try not to offend. But this is a period song. That particular tune was played as Jeb Stewart's cavalry theme song, played by a famous banjoist, son of a famous banjoist named Sweeney. Sweeney, the father, was quite the rounder, and the son joined the cavalry, and I don't know how you play that on banjo frailing while you ride at cavalry speed, but they did. And I'm making sure the wind doesn't blow these all over. These aren't exactly on my hit parade for performance, you know, but they are for you today, and I want to make sure that the lyrics and everything we do are nice here. Here's a great old tune I learned from Brother Doc Watson about the tragedy that it is for all families through the ages of sending their youngest son out. You know, I'm going to make a bad joke here, but we got a lot of banjo jokes, and I'm going to save that one. It's not courteous to not let him tune first. You know? I left my mute at home. You know what a banjo mute is? It's an 8-pound sledgehammer. Okay, he's had it.
Now for mine. Anybody knows the difference between an onion and a banjo?
I don't know the difference, Roll.
Well, nobody cries when they cut up a banjo.
From the bright sunny south to the war I was sent. Ere the days of my boyhood I scarcely had spent. From its cool shady forest and deep golden streams, ever fond in my memory and sweet in my dreams. Oh, my dear little sister, I still see her tears when I had to leave home in our tender years. And my sweet gentle mother, so dear to my heart, it grieved me sincerely when we had to part. Said my kind-hearted father as he took my hand, as you go in defense of our dear native land. Son, be brave, but show mercy as best as you can. Our hearts will be with you until you return again. In my bag there's a Bible to show me the way through my trials here on earth and to heaven someday. I will shoulder my musket and brandish my sword in defense of this land and the word of the Lord. We don't really have any sheet music, as you're probably aware, because we're not. We're going to do a camp song. This is a camp song that was sung by both sides, really. It's a little racy. It's risque to me. Risque. Close your ears, the little children, hide them, you know. But for the day, that's good. Make sure we're in tune. We do tune because we care. So you know that. Well, every soldier, every common foot soldier, even to the highfalutin generals and the multiple colonels, you know, had them wives and sweethearts that were not necessarily the same. Speaking peripherally or parallelly, or however you say that. And this is one about their one particular dream lady, the Rose of Alabama. Mississippi's fair with my old hat there for sale. I crossed the farm, the cotton bale to my Rose of Alabama. Oh, brown Rosie, Rose of Alabama, the sweet tobacco posy is the Rose of Alabama. Oh, brown Rosie, Rose of Alabama, the sweet tobacco posy is the Rose of Alabama. The cricket sang, the lightning buggy flashed his wing, and like a rope, my arms upwing to my Rose of Alabama. Oh, brown Rosie, Rose of Alabama, the sweet tobacco posy is the Rose of Alabama. Oh, brown Rosie, Rose of Alabama, the sweet tobacco posy is the Rose of Alabama. By now you figured out the risque part, right? The sweet brown tobacco Rosie. So fare thee well, little Liza Jean, and fare thee well, you bells of fame, for all your charms are put to shame by my Rose of Alabama. Oh, brown Rosie, Rose of Alabama, the sweet tobacco posy is the Rose of Alabama. Oh, brown Rosie, Rose of Alabama, the sweet tobacco posy is the Rose of Alabama. Thank you. Yeah. And she was. I want to do a little, this was a tune primarily that was a Southern song because of the fact that you grow peanuts in the South. I don't know any Pennsylvania peanut farmers in my multiple travels. But I've got a story to tell you about the origin of the term, which comes from the Gullah and the Geechee dialect, which I'm proud to say my father-in-law spoke fluently in South Georgia. My wife's family's from Georgia. Beautiful, thick accent. But in Charleston, you know, in Charleston, they don't really, they say they pay attention, but they weren't paying attention when this came around. What was phrased for a peanut, the term in Gullah and Geechee, was something called guba pintas. In español, para mí, un español just enough trouble to get into trouble, muchísimo trouble, And so guba pinta is what they called them. Only the Charlestonians, they roll their R's and they take their vowels around the corner and then bring it back, And that's okay. That's okay. I love it. I love it. But they call them goober peas. So if you want to sing with this one, please do. Roland and I are going to sing you goober peas, okay? Or if you want, and you want to be really authentic in Gullah and Geechee, sing it as guba pinta. I don't know if it'll fit. Actually, I've never tried. You do guba pinta for us then, all right? Good enough. Eating guba pintas? I guess it'll work. I don't know. We'll see. Sitting by the roadside on a summer's day, chatting with my messmates, passing time away. Lying in the shadows underneath the trees, goodness how delicious, eating goober pintas. Peas, eating goober peas. Goodness how delicious, eating goober peas. When a horseman passes, the soldiers have a rule to cry out their loudest, "Hey, mister, here's your mule." But another custom, enchantinger than these, is wearing out your grinders, eating goober peas. Peas, eating goober peas. Goodness, how delicious, eating goober peas. Peas, goober peas. Goodness, how delicious, eating goober peas. Well, just before the battle, the general hears a row. He says the Yanks are coming. I hear their rifles now. He turns around in wonder, and what do you think he sees? The Georgia militia eating goober peas. Peas, eating goober peas. Goodness, how delicious, eating goober peas. Peas, eating goober peas. Goodness, how delicious, eating goober pintas. Has lasted almost long enough. The subject's interesting, but the rhymes are mighty tough. I wish the war was over, so free from flags and fleas, we kiss our wives and sweethearts and gobble goober peas. Peas, eating goober peas. Goodness, how delicious, eating goober peas. Peas, eating goober peas. Goodness, how delicious, eating goober peas. Eating goober pintas. Goober pintas. We're going to slow it down a little bit and do a pretty song, a couple of them. And this is a two-part song. My family is... as I've subsequently found out, I always wondered why I spoke French when I was a kid. And then as a genius, went to college and thought I'd knock out the language requirement pretty quick. Son, forget it. I could not get the grammar down, So I took German, I am to the house going. I put the verb on the end of the song, But it turns out that I'm Acadian Scots, and that we married into a Scottish family in Nova Scotia after the recent clearances of some years ago of the 7 Years' War. That takes us a way back. But this is a tune in two parts. The first being the St. Anne's Reel, which is an Acadian song from original Acadian. Sorry, we got to switch here. He's on Mando and he needs fiddle. By the way, I'm right proud to be playing with Mr. Roland Terry, and I appreciate y'all giving him a real round of applause. You know, when I get in this area...
Through a mutual friend.
You bet.
Yeah.
You bet.
Uncle Leon.
Strange how we sometimes run into each other out of the vast wilderness of music. And we'll follow this one with a flat pick Acadian tune that's been picked up by the bluegrass people, and there's no lyrics to it, but they changed the title, so I don't know if there's any fiddle players in the audience, but Roland's going to render this one real nice. We'll do it as a medley. The second part will be an original Stephen Foster song with all the original lyrics, the period lyrics from the 50s, and all the historians go, of course, 1850, as you'll hear. It's just like yesterday. It's a drop in a couple of grains in sand in the sand. That's easier on my voice anyway. Get out the fiddle and the mandolin, tow you to a tune the way it's always been. A peck on the cheek, and he takes her hand for a song called St. Anne's Keep in mind, this was a minstrel song that was sold in the catalog of one Stephen Foster. He sold his whole catalog in 1854 to one Mr. Christie of the Christie Minstrels, the live version of what we're doing here without a PA, and we're going to do it the minstrel style, which was done on paint, as they say, with a tambourine. So you'll hear the tambourine where they would rush the proscenium of the stage and hit that backbeat, that all-important backbeat. Well, way down on the old plantation, that's where I was born. I used to beat the whole creation and the wind in the corn. And then I wakes and then I sing so happy all the day. Angelina came along and stole my heart away. Angelina Baker, Angelina Baker's gone, left me here beating on the old jawbone. Angelina Baker, Angelina Baker's gone, left me here weeping tears, beating on the old jawbone. Well, I see my Angelina in the summer, I see her in the fall. I see her in the cornfield and I see her at the ball. And every time I see her, she was smiling like the sun. I can't see my Angelina, Angelina's gone. Angelina Baker, Angelina Baker's gone. Left me here to weep a tear, beating on the old jawbone. Angelina Baker, Angelina Baker's gone. Left me here to weep a tear, beating on the old jawbone. Now Angelina am so tall she can hardly see the ground. She gots to take a Wellum scope to look down on the town. Angelina likes the boys as far as she can see 'em. Used to run on Mass around to ask if she would free 'em. Angelina Baker, Angelina Baker's gone. Left me here to weep a tear, beating on the old jawbone. Angelina Baker, Angelina Baker's gone. Left me here to weep a tear, beating on the old jawbone. Go ahead. Summer's day, I asked for my Angelina, and they say she's gone away. I don't know where she's gone to, I only know she's gone. I can't find my Angelina, Angelina's gone. Angelina Baker, Angelina Baker's gone. Left me here to weep a tear, beating on the old jawbone. Angelina Baker, Angelina Baker's gone. Left me here to weep a tear, beating on the old jawbone. Left me here to weep a tear, beating on the old jawbone. So get out the fiddle and the mandolin, throw a heel to a tune the way it's always been. Peck on the cheek, and she takes his hand for a tune called the St. Anne's Reel. Thank you. Thank you all. We'll be back after our first speaker. Thank you.
Appreciate it. This is the part I'm talking about right here.
Good afternoon. My name is Candace Bailey. I teach at North County Central. And one of my areas of research is women in the South in the antebellum and Civil War period. So I want to talk to you a little bit today about the cultivated tradition. And what we mean by cultivated is that in the antebellum and 1860s period, young women were deliberately molded into young ladies by their parents. They had rules they should be able to follow. They should be, very tasteful, models of deportment and so forth. And in order to exhibit this accomplishment, music was one of the main accomplishments that young ladies would, by which they would show how well they'd been cultivated. And in the place where they would show this was the parlor. Young ladies would not perform in public. They would not be on the stage, but they would perform in the parlor. And if a house had a parlor, it almost certainly had a piano. And the piano would have been a square piano, which is a rectangular, not really a square, piano with the keyboard on the side. You may have seen them before. These were very convenient because they fit into the corner of the house, and then you move the furniture and you can dance in the house. You can also put flowers and pictures and stuff on top, so that was an ideal kind of shape for this culture. Now, young ladies would play the piano, they would play the guitar, they might play the harp, and they could sing. They would not play the violin, they would not play the flute. Men could play the flute, and men could play the banjo, the violin. I've got the banjo on my mind. But ladies couldn't. If you think about the clothes they were wearing, antebellum women's clothes were designed so they wouldn't have to lift their hands above their waist, because otherwise it would indicate they could work. And they didn't work, of course. Of course, we know they did, but the idea was they didn't work. And if you're going to play the violin, you have to be up here, and that won't work. And if you're going to play the flute, well, that just has all kinds of facial images that they did not want young ladies doing. So they would play the piano or sing most of the time. Now, they would learn this starting at home, and then they would be able to often go to school. And we had several of those schools in this area. Perhaps the most famous is St. Mary's, which was started in 1842. The Burwell School, I don't know if you've had a chance to go over there in Hillsborough, in the 1850s. And there was another school in Hillsborough called Nash and Colic. There was even a school in Murfreesboro with 140 students. There was one in Goldsboro with over 100 students. The Greensboro Female Seminary had 220 students, 196 of whom took piano lessons. This just tells you how much a part of the regular curriculum this was. You would take your piano lessons with your teacher at school, not as regular as we do now. They had a problem keeping their teachers because their teachers were mostly itinerant professors of music from Europe. And they would come and stay a few years here and then go a few years there and back and forth. When you got your sheet music together after a certain age, you would have it bound together in something like this. This is what we call a binder's volume. And you would have your name, if you could, imprinted on the front of it. And this would tell everybody that you knew what you were doing. You don't even have to open it up, right? It's right on the piano. Obviously, you're musical. So that was nice. The Burwell School, if you've been over there, you may have seen the music building in the back. Now, often the pianos would have been in the parlor or other rooms of the main house that the girls were living in. The practice pianos were in the dormitories with the girls. If you can imagine 2 or 3 pianos and everybody trying to practice at once. That doesn't sound very good to me. But the Burwell School has their music building in the back. It's a brick building deliberately built for that purpose, which is kind of an interesting thing to do. Doesn't always happen that way. I want to let you hear an example. I've lost the machine. We're going to hear a piece today by Gustav Blesner. Now, Blesner was born in 1808, and he was teaching at St. Mary's in the 1840s. And the piece we're going to listen to is called The Flowers of the South, and he dedicated it to the young ladies at the St. Mary's School in Raleigh. These are 3 women or 3 young ladies. The first one is called Lavinia. The second one is called Arabella. The third one is called Senora. I don't know if these were girls who were at the school and he just happened to write these pieces for them or not. But as we listen to this, these 3 waltzes go in a chain, and you can imagine them putting the furniture back and dancing in the parlor. Ms. Burwell at the Burwell School said this was what she thought was the best way for young girls to get exercise, was dancing in the parlor. Now at St. Mary's, they would twice a month have a soiree, and invited guests would come and hear the young ladies exhibit. And then they would also push back the piano, push back the instruments, the chairs and so forth, and dance. The governor was often a visitor at St. Mary's for these events. So if you can kind of imagine as we listen to this song, all these 14, 15-year-old girls waltzing together around in a small parlor, because these weren't large rooms. But this is the type of music they would have played. Still another waltz, right? Not me. I would be the one playing the piano and not the one dancing. You may have seen this on Pride and Prejudice when they're dancing to the piano. It's that same idea. And of course, the piece has to be easy enough for any of the young girls to be able to play it. Big finish. So that was the kind of piece they would have played in the parlor. Now, with the Civil War, most of the women before the Civil War had their music was made in Baltimore or Philadelphia or New York or Boston, maybe New Orleans. With the Civil War, it becomes very difficult to get sheet music, and we have a rise in what we call Confederate imprints. These are publishers in the South, and they were in the smaller towns, but they had a very difficult time. They had to smuggle musical type across battle lines just to get it into the town. And then there's also a problem with paper. and the paper's of a very poor quality. So if you can find a binder's volume that has Confederate imprints, it's going to cost a lot more than the ones that are maybe 20 or 30 years older, just because they're rarer, they disintegrate so easily. So anyway, that's my little introduction on the parlor and the cultivated tradition. If you want more, here's the book. It's on Kindle for only $17.46. Feel free to take a look. Thank you.
Stage call. How much? How many dollars per second do you dock? None. We'll hold your attention. Let's start. Well, we promised you a couple of instrumentals, and we're also going to start with a tune that's well known to a certain section of the country. If you know the lyrics, you can sing along. Even if you don't, you might know the tune. It's from the Irish Jaunting Car, is what it's called. A lot of the tunes of the period on both sides were Irish and Scottish airs and things from the English Army, this being one of them. We are a band of brothers and natives of the soil, fighting for our liberty with pleasure, blood, and toil. But when our rights were threatened, to die we would prefer. Hurrah for the bonny blue flag that bears a single star. Hurrah, hurrah, for Southern rights, hurrah. Hurrah for the bonny blue flag that bears a single star. Hurrah, hurrah, for Southern rights, hurrah. Hurrah for the bonny blue flag that bears a single star. As long as the Union was faithful to her trust, like friends and like brothers, we were kind and just. But when Northern treachery attempts our rights to mar, we hoist on high the bonny blue flag that bears a single star. Hurrah, hurrah, for Southern rights, hurrah. Hurrah for the bonny blue flag that bears a single star. Hurrah, hurrah, for Southern rights, hurrah. Hurrah for the bonny blue flag that bears a single star. First gallant South Carolina nobly made a stand, and then came Alabama, who took her by the hand. Next quickly Mississippi, Georgia, and Florida, all raised on high the bonny blue flag that bears a single star. Hurrah, hurrah, for Southern rights, hurrah. Hurrah for the bonny blue flag that bears a single star. Hurrah, hurrah, for Southern rights, hurrah. Hurrah for the bonny blue flag that bears a single star. Ye men of valor, gather round the banner of the right. Texas and Br'er, Louisiana will join us in the fight. Davis, our loved president, and Stephen, statesman rare, now rally round the bonny blue flag that bears a single star. Hurrah, hurrah, for Southern rights, hurrah. Hurrah for the sunny blue flag that bears a single star. Hurrah, hurrah, for Southern rights, hurrah. Hurrah for the bonny blue flag that bears a single star. Then here's to brave Virginia, the old Dominion state, who with the young Confederacy at length has linked her fate. Impelled by her example, let others states prepare. So cheer up for the bonny blue flag that bears a single star. Hoorah, hoorah, for Southern rights, hoorah, hoorah, for the bonny blue flag that bears a single star. Hoorah, hoorah, for Southern rights, hoorah, hoorah, for the bonny blue flag that bears a single star. Then here's to our Confederacy, strong we are and brave. Like patriots of old, we fight our heritage to save. And rather than submit to shame to die, we would prefer. So cheer up for the bonny blue flag that bears a single star. Hoorah, hoorah, the Southern rights, hoorah, hoorah, for the bonny blue flag that bears a single star. Hoorah, hoorah, the Southern rights, hoorah, hoorah, for the bonny blue flag that bears a single star. Then cheer up, boys, cheer, and raise a glorious shout, for Arkansas and North Carolina now have all gone out. And let another rousing cheer for Tennessee be given, for the single star of the bonny blue flag has grown to be 11. Hoorah, hoorah, for Southern rights, hoorah, hoorah, for the bonny blue flag that bears a single star. Hoorah, hoorah, for Southern rights, hoorah, the single star of the bonny blue flag has grown to be 11. I promise y'all one of my heritage songs, and it was played, but I don't know if how many French people there were. Well, there was quite a few Zoabs from Louisiana, and they might have known this one. I don't know what this is in Francais, but they call it in bluegrass cattle in the cane. Wait a minute. This here cold weather. I pounded this thing, so this was in tune when I bought it, by the way. All right, are you ready for probably the prettiest song that I know? And it's a song from the 18 and 25. And it's a song from Florida. It's actually a slave tune about going home. It's a folk song. I won a number of folk, I don't know how you have a folk song competition, but they do. You know, it's sort of like Beethoven. That's a great note. He used it many times. And I can play that note better than you can. You know. But cast your minds back. There's no automobiles. There's no asphalt. There's no concrete. The sweet sunny South. Me back to the place where I first saw the light. To my sweet sunny South, take me home, where the mockingbird sang me to sleep in the night. Oh, why was I tempted to roam? Well, I think with regret of the dear home I left, and the warm hearts that sheltered me there, of a wife and her dear ones of whom I'm bereft. For the old place again do I sigh. Take me back to the place where I first saw the light. To my sweet sunny South, take me home, where the mockingbird sang me to sleep in the night. Oh, why was I tempted to roam? The path to our home has grown green with the moss, and the path is quite verdant around. I know that the forms and the shapes I once knew now lie beneath the cold, cold ground. Take me back, let me see what is left that I knew. Can it be that the old place is gone? Dear friends from my childhood indeed must be few, and now I must face death all alone. Take me back to the place where I first saw the light. To my sweet sunny South, take me home, where the mockingbird sings me to sleep in the night. Oh, why was I tempted to roam? But yet I'll return to the place of my birth, where the children all played round the door. where they gather wildflowers that bloom by the path. They will echo our footsteps no more. Take me back to the place where I first saw the light, to my sweet sunny south. Take me home, where the mockingbird sang me to sleep in the night. Oh, why was I tempted to roam, where the mockingbird sang me to sleep in the night. Oh, why was I tempted to roam. Thank you. Yeah, I apologize. I got talking on a history subject, and God help me. I have all of these connections in my head, you know, name connections, mostly because my wife was a genealogist. So I make a lot of jokes about that too. You know, she's checking my genes all the time. Just kidding. I'm definitely a throwback. Or a thrown out. Yeah, I'm getting racy, sorry. We're at the confluence of events here, so we're going to get racy. This is a tune that a lot of times there were a lot, as I mentioned, a lot of the Scots-Irish tunes, of course, made it across the big lake, and they carried them with them as they played on both sides of the war. And this is Fisher's hornpipe. Wait a minute, this beat is out. Thank you. If you have sheet music for that, it's written over the top of it, sprightly. I don't know what sprightly means, but if you're not with it and you haven't had enough of coffee, you ain't sprightly, and I've got news for you. We'll do a real quick one here, and then we have another speaker coming up. So. Yeah. We're going to do this is a real easy song for y'all to sing along with. it's way out of tune with that tune port Harley right there, but we'll try and make it happen. So. I did a lot of shows with John Hartford and toured with him for a while, not playing with him, but opening all the shows, and came up with this great one. I don't know where he found it, probably in some old archive somewhere, but the lyrics are real simple. I put my knapsack on my back, my rifle on my shoulder. I'm going away to Shiloh for to be a rebel soldier, or to be a soldier. Doesn't matter. They changed it back then.
Chandler Vadbook. I was going to read some segments from Donna Peace. It's a book that my dad wrote back in the 1980s on the history of the Bennett Place historic site in Durham, North Carolina. Actually, this book had been out of print for most of the last 20 years, and the Bennett Place Support Fund, which I'm a member of, we worked in tandem with many other people to get it republished late last year, and we have copies available actually in the gift shop that we can sign today. But I figured I'd read a few segments from this. This fits in well with the Durham History program we have this afternoon. An April to Remember. In many respects, April 1865 was no different than any other April in Piedmont, North Carolina. The woods were afire with blooming dogwood and redwood, while in the fields and meadows, upland crests, wild azalea, and honeysuckle sprang from the stiff, red soil. It was as if they and all the other plants were trying to make up for lost time. So was James Bennett. For him and most other yeoman farmers, April was a busy month. The relative leisure of the mild Orange County winter was but a memory as he fought the stubborn clay with mattock and grubbing hoe, planting spring corn and then fertilizing it with manure or cottonseed. There were other plantings, potatoes, watermelon, grains, but corn was his cash crop. much as Brightleaf Tobacco came to be the moneymaker in his part of North Carolina just a few years later. Unlike most of his neighbors, Bennett did more than just farm. He transported goods and school children in his farm wagon, made and sold clothes and shoes, took in lodgers, and occasionally quenched their thirst with a pint of brandy. April 1865 held no promise of life for the Confederacy. On April 2nd, immediately after General Robert E. Lee and his Army of Northern Virginia had abandoned their lines at Petersburg, Virginia, President Jefferson Davis and the Confederate cabinet had evacuated Richmond. A week later, Lee surrendered his tattered army to Lieutenant General Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse. By then, Davis and the cabinet, except for Secretary of War John C. Breckinridge, had retreated to Danville, Virginia, the first of several temporary capitals. Before capitulating, however, Lee had attempted to break through the Union lines and unite his troops with those of General Joseph E. Johnson, who commanded the Army of Tennessee and all other forces in the departments of North and South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. When Johnson had accepted the command in February, Lee had charged him to use it to drive back Sherman, hardly an enviable task. Since then, Johnson had played cat and mouse with Major General William T. Sherman's advancing army throughout North Carolina. After their most recent engagement at Bentonville on March 19th to the 21st of 1865, Johnson had withdrawn to Smithfield, about 30 miles east of Raleigh, the state capital. While there, he learned on April the 5th of the evacuation of Richmond and inferred from this that General Lee was abandoning the defense of Richmond in order to unite their two armies. Mr. Bennett surprised visitors. Just as Sherman was leaving Raleigh early Monday morning, April 17th, for the train trip to Durham Station, which is now Durham, a telegrapher handed him an urgent message. President Lincoln had been assassinated, and Secretary of State William Seward and his son had been wounded. Swearing the telegrapher to secrecy, Sherman pocketed the shocking message and, with heavy heart, ordered the train to move out. About 10 a.m., Sherman and his staff reached Durham Station, where they were met by Kilpatrick and a squadron of cavalry. The party proceeded to Kilpatrick's headquarters, probably the William Mangum House, which is nearby downtown, and headed along the Hillsborough Road toward the meeting place, which is the Hillsborough Road we know from US 70 today. A man carrying a white flag preceded them, and about 5 miles farther was met by a Confederate truce bearer. Later, Johnson and Hampton rode up with their staffs and a detachment of the 5th South Carolina Cavalry. The opposing generals met east of the Bennett farm and exchanged greetings for the very first time. Sherman asked if there might be a private place nearby where they could confer. Johnson suggested a nice farm that they had just passed. Sherman agreed to its use. The generals rode side by side to the Bennett farm with a Confederate escort leading the way. The generals and their staffs tethered their horses under a large white oak next to James Bennett's well, across the road from his house, kitchen, and stable. Major John Johnson, an engineer on Johnson's staff, was among those present. His diary records similar impressions. The flags of the cavalry escorts met at 10 miles east of Hillsborough, Bennett's house, 10 miles west of Durham Station, North Carolina Railroad, and the conference in generals lasted 2 hours. I conversed with several Union officers. Nichols, Hitchcock, Poe, chief engineer of Sherman's army, returned to Hampton's headquarters by 4 p.m. In appearance, Sherman and Johnson were a study in contrast. O.F. Howe, a New York Herald correspondent, described them. General Sherman, with his coat unbuttoned, his hands in his pockets, and smoking cigars, he was quite cheerful and at his ease, having the air of one who felt himself indubitably master of the situation. General Johnson, with his coat carefully buttoned up, his uniform new, and looking every inch of the soldier, appeared quite haggard and careworn. It was unquestionably a very unpleasant duty he was performing, and it weighed heavily upon him. And now we move forward 1 week in the negotiations, many days of negotiations that back and forth and were tumultuous between the two sides. And now to the 25th of April. On the 25th, Johnson wrote Sherman to ask for another armistice. Sherman granted his request. The two men met again at Bennett's house at noon on April 26th. Compared to the previous meetings, this one was anticlimactic. Following the letter of his instructions from Grant and Stanton, Sherman offered terms nearly identical to those given Lee at Appomattox 17 days before. Those terms pertain solely to those military personnel, Army and Navy, directly under Johnson's department in the Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida. Having little choice, Johnson signed the agreement, though he did convince Sherman to transfer from the department all Union troops except those few needed to maintain order in North Carolina. According to Johnson's recollection, several generals accompanying Sherman that day gave the impression that they regretted the rejection of the terms of the 18th of April. As expected, the Northern press reacted positively to news of the April 26 record. We very safely assumed that the last gun of the war has been fired, wrote the New York Times on April 29th. This seems a very simple record, and yet how hard, we may say how impossible, it is to realize its full significance. Despite being in the shadow of Appomattox Courthouse for well more than a century, the Bennett Place surrender was an important event militarily and in respect to the conciliatory terms originally offered by Sherman, and had been a harbinger of the resulting unity between North and South. The spirit of unity Bennett Place engenders has inspired thousands of visitors to the site. One of them, noted author and social historian James Rustin Jr., has seen Bennett Place as an enduring symbol of peace and brotherhood. During a 1986 lecture he delivered at the site, Rustin said that the Bennett Place surrender was far more important to the end of the war between the states than Appomattox. But more important, the characters involved, i.e. Sherman and Johnston, were infinitely more interesting than Grant and Lee. Moreover, Rustin has pointed out, what happened here was far more than a simple military truce. It was the neck in the hourglass between the war and the Reconstruction period. Indeed, Rustin noted, the issues of Reconstruction were joined at Bennett Place. The late Vice President Hubert H. Humphrey also recognized the site's crucial role in American life then and now. At the 100th anniversary in April 1965, in this keynote speech he delivered then, he said, "We should always remember this lesson from the past. We must never permit the spirit of radicalism to poison the minds and the hearts of the American people. This is the real lesson we can learn from the Bennett Place." And today we have a special guest. Paul Hess is commander of the Sons of Union Veterans and a reenactor. He was going to tell us a little bit about his personal history of Bennett Place in Durham.
Well, thank you. I was asked why a Union Yankee is here in Durham, and approximately 12 days from this date, there will be 200,000 Yankees or men dressed in blue in Raleigh to help curtail or end the Civil War as we know it today. Just on the other side of this building, there's a Civil War trail that actually a lot of these men walked along to Bennett's farm for the surrender to end the war as we know it. It's the largest surrender of the war. 90,000 Confederates gave up their arms, and to say the least, it was not done over a couple days, it was done over a couple weeks, because when they found out that Lincoln had been assassinated, there was an effort to take retaliation. And I represent the John E. Logan camp of the Raleigh-Durham area, the Union veterans. And the name John Logan comes from the Union general who was at one time a Confederate, who switched over to the Union side because he believed that there should be equality. And during the turmoil after Lincoln's assassination, there was an effort to burn Raleigh to the ground. It was my great-great-great-grandfather, who I represent, Jacob Wagner from Buffalo, New York, who's one of the many batteries who John Logan had turned on his own men and forbid them to burn Raleigh to the ground as Sherman had been doing from Atlanta to Savannah. The reason for that is North Carolina was the last state to succeed from the Union, and to be quite honest, we are in Confederate plantation country as we stand here today. But the Union Navy and the military strength in the mountains was greater than the Confederacy in what we call North Carolina. I happened to walk with North Carolina in this uniform in the reenactment of Gettysburg 2 years ago. And I happened to walk with them because I've been here 31 years. And they took me captive because I was dressed in blue. And after we did the charge with picket to the wall, and it was extremely hot, they promised that they would release me as a prisoner if I took them and bought them ice cream, which I did. And it was about 90 degrees that day, and we are dressed in wool. This is not Dakron, this is wool. A little history on my grandfather. He was 21 years old when he joined the Light Artillery Group in Buffalo with the German contingent. He had been in the country 5 years. He came here at 16, worked on a farm, and his first battle in 1863 was Gettysburg. And he was one of 5 batteries on Cemetery Ridge. And the night before the big battle pickets charge, they were actually engaged in hand-to-hand combat with the Louisiana Tigers from Louisiana and Alabama. He somehow survived the entire war, was with Sherman in Atlanta, was with Sherman in Savannah, was here in Bentonville, was here in Morrisville, was here in Raleigh, was here at Bennett's Farm. And again, his light artillery group were the ones who turned the guns on their own men to prevent Raleigh from being burned down. So there's quite a history. They mustered out April 27th, and they walked from here back to Washington. There were no railroads. And when he was mustered out, he had to pay for the canteen that he was not issued because he had someone else's canteen, and they charged him $2.50, which was a month's pay. So I represent a number of factors. I hope that you all undertake the opportunity to go to Bennett's Farm. This is the big month of the 150th reunion of the Civil War, or the end of the Civil War. Durham was ground zero for the end of the for the Civil War. And for those people who haven't been there, there's going to be quite an event starting really next week. I will be there with a number of people manning a table. If anyone has ancestral to the Confederacy or to the Union side, you can become part of that group. You just have to go back to the archives and prove that linkage. I have been in Durham since 1981, and I taught school and worked at Duke University, so this is home to me at the present time. But I still go back to Buffalo, and there are times when people still ask me about this uniform and what I do. The red represents artillery, so all the red that you see represents fire. All the men were dressed in different colors because during a battle there was so much smoke and fire you couldn't see. So red represented artillery, blue of course represented Union. This was not a battle uniform. Basically, if I took off the cover here and put on what I have is a red shirt, it was basically red plaid, so they could identify who was good and who was bad, who was friend, who was foe. The medals represent Bentonville. This one here in the blue represents the only second monument of the Union efforts in the country. Some people are still fighting the Civil War. If you go to certain parts of the country, it ain't over with. It ain't over with. And I wrote an article not too long ago about the Confederate flag versus the U.S. flag, and some people raise the Confederate flag above the U.S. flag. That's their choice. The other medal represents the 50th anniversary of the end of the Battle of Gettysburg. And a number of lives, the greatest loss of life for the Confederacy was North Carolina. And that's why I walked with them, because I feel more North Carolinian than I do New York. But all in all, please take advantage of the last hurrah that we're going to express during this 150th. All of us sitting here, I can look at our ages, except for a couple younger gentlemen here. We're not going to be here for the 200th. And there's an effort to do away with the property here at Benton Place, Bentonville, Gettysburg, and if the realtors got their way, it would be all basically subdivisions, etc. So please take advantage of it, support the effort. I appreciate being invited here today. Wonderful to think that somebody's taken the time and effort to take this building and move it into what it is today. And Durham, all I can say is that when I first moved here, you didn't come downtown. When I left Duke, the hospital, when I got out of work, we didn't come down here. And look at the changes that have taken place over the years. So Durham's a very, very positive upcoming place to be. So thank you once again, and I hope you enjoy your day.
We're the anchor tenant here. We're getting to it. We're going to do a song that Roland could probably tell you a lot more about than myself. The title of it is Quince Dillion's High D.
Quince Dillion was a fifer in one of the Virginia regiments during the Civil War. A fellow from, I don't know where Allen was really from, but he's a northerner, and he was down here going to Duke University in his 60s, and he came by, he was doing a study for his PhD. And the first fiddler he went and talked to, found out about and recorded was my Uncle Ansel. He came to his house, this was about 1965, I think, somewhere around there. Anyway, those recordings are in the Library of Congress. One of the, Allen went all over the country collecting fiddle tunes from actual old fiddlers. And this is one he collected from a guy named Henry Reed up in West Virginia, almost West Virginia, almost heaven. Anyway, it's Henry Reed learned this tune from Quince Dillion, who was a fifer in one of the Virginia regiments in the Civil War. It's called Quince Dillion's High D. Oh, incidentally, those recordings were actually done on this violin right here. This my Uncle Etzel's fiddle. He gave it to me about 5-6 years ago before he died.
Hang on to the fiddle. Like we said earlier, the songs we're playing are not normally what you hear like in a stage production, unless we were doing this type of event, because people would just go, "What are you singing about?" It's not contemporaneous, and people not necessarily tuned to it. But I'll give you an example of something that carries over into American history, because we were deciding whether and how to play this song, and when Roland mentioned the tune to me, I said, "Oh, I know that one from a Tex Avery cartoon of the Southern Wolf, who whistles it as he chases people in the cartoon, shall we say, ladies in the cartoon, a famous cartoon." And I'm going, that's so strange, but somebody knew the music. So this is a song. Let me make sure that this does not fly up because the lyrics are difficult, to say the least. It was a tune that was sung by African-American soldiers coming into battle. They whistled it or sang it as they were on the attack. It was also sung in certain underground meetings at various places. And the song is called The Year of Jubilo, or Kingdom Coming, and it was written by an abolitionist named Henry Work. So, and I am, out of deference to current language, again, remember this was written by an abolitionist. I'm substituting a couple of lyrics as folkies, but you'll get the drift. Because remember, it was sung by soldiers from the 56th Massachusetts and many other units. Have you seen the master with the mustache on his face? Go along the road sometime this morning, he going to leave the place. He'd seen the smoke way up the river where the Lincoln gunboats lay. He took his half and left there, sudden I expect he run away. The master run, ha ha, the folkies say ho ho. And let's be down to kingdom coming in the year of Jubilo. He's 6 foot 1 way, 2 foot the other, and he weighed 300 pounds. His coat so big he couldn't paint a tailor, and it won't go halfway around. He drilled so much they call him captain, and he got so dreadful tan. I expect he tried to fool them Yankees into thinking he's contraband. The folkies say ho ho, it must be now the kingdom coming in the year of Jubilo. The folkies feel so lonesome living in the log house on the lawn. They moved our things into Master's bottle to keep it while he's gone. There's wine and cider in the kitchen, and the folkies, they'll have some. Just suppose they'll all be confiscated when the Lincoln soldiers come. The master run, ha ha, the folkies stay ho ho. It must be now the kingdom coming in the year of Jubilo. Overseer, he make us trouble and he drive us round to spell. We lock him up in the smokehouse cellar with the trout he thrown in the well. His whip he lost, he handcuffed Bucker, but the master keep his pay. He's old enough, big enough, ought to know better to know when to run away. A master run, ha ha, the folkies stay ho ho. It must be now the kingdom coming in the year of Jubilo. The master run, ha ha, the folkies stay ho ho. It must be now the kingdom coming in the year of Jubilo. And that's the real song. I'm sorry, but that's a hard song to sing. I don't know. You don't have enough air to do that song. So I don't have enough. And my wife tells me I'm pretty full of it. So
I can't read that way.
I can't breathe that way either. So as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the songs carried over, historically speaking, and I'm not a musicologist, but I've become one over the years, I guess, to try and find out where tunes and music come from. This one dates to before the Napoleonic Wars, way before. And of course, those descendants that brought that song back, the Irish descendants, the English descendants that stayed, that survived. You see, you would have had perhaps French survivors from the retreat from Moscow in 1800s who would come to the United States to get out of the hellhole that was European politics even then. This one's called The Girl I Left Behind Me. And all you Ronald Reagan or Errol Flynn fans will recognize this from the 24 hours of She Wore a Yellow Ribbon. You kick it. I'm lonesome since I crossed the hills o'er the moorland sedgy. Such a heavy thought my heart still feels since parting with my Betsy. I seek for no one fair and gay, but find none to remind me how sweet the hours I passed away with the girl I left behind me. One ne'er shall fit been clear in the night when the stars were bright above me and gently lit their silver light when first she vowed to love me. But now I'm bound to Brighton camp, kind heaven to pray guide me and send me safely back again to the girl I left behind me. Her golden hair and ringlets fair, her eyes like diamonds shining, her slender waist, her heavenly face, of these my heart still find. Ye gods above, oh hear my prayer, my beauty is fair, find me and send me safely back again to the girl I left behind me. The bee shall for me taste no more, the dove become a ranger, the falling waters cease to roar, ere shall I seek to change her. The vows we made to heaven above shall ever cheer and bind me in constancy to her, oh love, the girl I left behind me. There you go. I was almost expecting the Southern Wolf to. That's a great cartoon, by the way. Crazy, but great. And I don't know how much more we need to be playing, but you can kind of give me. It's up to us. We'll do a little picking tune here, and we'll dedicate it to an old Virginian that we know who's a three-time fiddle champion of the state of Virginia, and. He's still alive and everything. He picks on the weekends when you can find him when he's not growing tobacco. And his John Deere hat never comes off. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I haven't asked his wife if he takes it off when he goes to sleep. Them Harleys are in the wrong key, I'm just telling you. They like talking about that. You know, they patented the tone of a Harley muffler. It has a patent. It actually has a patent. I don't know what key they're in, but I'm never in it. G major stuff. G major 7's says it's a G major 6 or 7, something like that. Roland would know. Anyway, he's got white hair all underneath his John Deere hat, but one time he took it off. His name is Earl Link, 3-time Virginia State champion fiddle player. When he gets to picking, he starts smiling and sometimes forgets his uppers. So there's, and when I grow up one day, I want to be just like him. So I know we're recording this, so Earl, God bless you, we love you. This is the red-haired boy, or the Irish version, and I do not know the Gaelic, the Beggar Man. Oh, let's see. Well, you know, we can keep on going, but well, we're having fun. I got one more tune to finish, and it's by a dear friend of mine, and we will render it, and then we will say our adieus. Thank you all very much. And the lady that was wanted the CD, I hope she didn't leave because she needed to use the credit card thingy, you know, my new magic, my instant slider that's the keys to the universe, as they say, particularly if you don't pay attention. What? I didn't charge that much. Okay. But my wife's name is Cheatham. Her family name is Cheatham, and she's a descendant of General Benjamin Franklin Cheatham, the CSA. And when we were courting, that didn't come up as a pedigree check or anything, you know, but there's a Cheatham Hill. Yeah, I'm sorry. He's kind of looking at me with this great puzzle on his face. What? And there's a Cheatham's Hill there for General Cheatham's stance at Kennesaw Line in just north of Atlanta. And this song has carried for 30 more years from when I used to play it and take it all around. And you'll find a version of it really nicely done by my friend Claire Lynch and band. The Kennesaw Line. Simple man, I got no command of the written word. I can only try and tell you of the things I have seen and heard. Listen to the picture forever etched upon my mind. The day that hell broke loose just north of me, right all along the Kennesaw Line. Sun rose high above us that morning on a clear and cloudless day. A peckerwood tapped on a tree that would soon be shot away. The heat blistered down to the leaves on the trees. The air seemed hot enough to catch fire. Heaven seemed to be made of brass. The sun rose higher and higher. Says, I believe them boys down there are up to something. I know it ain't no good. The storm broke and swept down on us. It rumbled through the hills. Walter sighed and dropped his rifle. Said something to me about the whippoorwill. Sammy, can't you hear him singing? Singing for you and me, and all of the morning days. Lord, carry me back to Tennessee. God bless the 1st and the 27th and the Grand Rock City Guards. Sammy, nobody ever told me that dying could be this hard. Sammy, I think I'm hurting real bad. Ain't this a hell of a day? You best go leave me be now. I think I need some time to pray. You know how bad I've been wanting to go home. Well, I couldn't see rightly how. Colonel Bill ain't gonna have a choice this time. Reckon I'll get my furlough now. Sammy, can't you hear him singing? Singing for you and me, and all of the morning days. Lord, carry me back to Tennessee. Well, God bless the cowards and the brave alike who died where the seeds of death are sown. I pity the poor Yankee soldiers who died so far from home. Told you all I'm simple man, got no command of the written word. I can only try and tell you of the things I have seen and heard. Listen to the picture forever etched upon my mind. The day that hell was just north of me, right all along Kennesaw Line. The day that hell broke loose just north of me, right along Kennesaw Line. Hey Sammy, can't you hear him singing? Singing for you and me. And all of our regrets, Lord, carry me